Hi, gratitude seekers, and welcome to a new episode of the Gratitude Podcast. Today, I have a wonderful guest for you. Her name is Teresa de Grosbois, and she's a 4 times best-selling author and an international speaker sought by entrepreneurs and large corporations wanting to better understand how local word of mouth can suddenly turn epidemic. She has taken 3 books to bestseller status in 8 months, and she recently released a book called Mass Influence, which hit #1 international bestseller status in North America and in Europe on the same day it launched. Teresa teaches business and marketing courses around the globe, but I will let her tell you more about herself and her work. Teresa?
Thank you for having me. I'm just really thrilled to be here. You know, I like to think of myself as one of the original enlightened gypsies.
Wow.
I have the privilege of having a fun life where I help good people all over the world who just want to create social change and build a better world, understand how they create mass influence around their work.
That's wonderful. Tell me more about what you just said with being a gypsy or...
Well, you know, I think a lot of people are feeling called to get out and travel more, which actually really aligns with one of the principles of influence, right? Because, you know, one of the things we all know is that the further you are from home, the smarter people think you are. And so
Good one.
sometimes in order to help create social change, you know, we got to get out and connect with like-minded individuals in other countries. And, you know, I'm down in Costa Rica right now, actually, because we're starting an intentional community down here.
Yeah, tell me
But
more about
when
that.
Costa Ricans hear that I'm being interviewed by someone in Romania, that's a big freaking deal,
It
right?
sure is.
And just the same way, I'm sure when Romanians hear that you've got a Canadian expert on your call who's down in Costa Rica, that's a big freaking deal. So, you know, I'm really encouraging people to get out and follow their hearts, to travel and connect more, even if it's just connecting with other people who have small local followings. That's the stuff word of mouth epidemics are made of.
Wonderful, wonderful. So what are you doing there in Costa Rica right now?
Oh, we're just having a blast down here. You know, I actually lead a large organization of people who want to create social shift in the world. It's called the Evolutionary Business Council. And a couple of years ago, a number of our members all started saying, oh, we should do something in Costa Rica. You know, we should go down there and maybe build a retreat center together or create a community. And I started hearing this from so many people. I'm one of those people when, you know, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, starts giving you the same idea over and over again. I'm like, okay, I'm listening already.
Yeah, exactly.
So we came down here to check it out, and things actually fell in place far more easily than we ever could have imagined. We found this incredible piece of land that is owned by a retired buffalo farmer, veterinarian from Wisconsin, who loved the idea of creating an intentional community around the values of sustainability and transformational teachings. And so he's been working with us to create a community where it'll be like a landing pad for enlightened gypsies. You know, people can come in and they can either own a piece of the land, or they can own a lease on a guest house, so people can own a month or a winter or a summer of one of the guest houses if they want.
Wow, that's so
Yeah,
wonderful.
we're kind of calling it an enlightened timeshare. It's not crazy expensive like timeshares normally are, and it's also it's founded around just creating a gathering of conscious individuals that really believe that if we change ourselves and focus on who we are in the world, that we can start creating great social shift in the world.
That's
And
so wonderful,
so
getting
yeah, we're excited
people
about what's getting
together.
created here. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
with
if you
the...
hear, there's a really loud parrot outside my window. So if you suddenly hear a very loud bird shouting, "Hola,"
Good one,
you'll
good
know
one.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that communities like the one you mentioned are getting together, and like-minded people are there, and I think this can grow into something really beautiful.
Well, you know, and one of the things I teach around influence is that you can't make yourself famous, right? You can only give influence to other people and they can give it back to you. And so fundamentally, it's your relationships with other like-minded individuals that allow you to create change and social shift in the world. And, one of the things I realized early on when we created the Evolutionary Business Council was that we really needed to simply create an environment where good people who wanted to teach something or create some sort of shift in the thinking of other people, especially transformational shift, could come together and become friends. And because it's out of those friendships, that's the miracle zone. When suddenly you're launching a book, or you're launching a new webinar series, or you're launching a podcast, or you're trying to create a movement around something, or you're trying to get the media to pay attention to something, when you're in that space and you suddenly realize that you have 200 friends who love you deeply, who all have big followings of their own, and they got your back. They're willing to
Yeah.
shout out whatever you're doing. They're willing to, use their own influence to put at your back. That really is the miracle zone. That's what word of mouth epidemics are made of. And that's a lot of what we're creating down here in Costa Rica. We're creating an environment where the enlightened gypsies of the world can come together and get to know each other in friendship and in fun.
Wonderful, wonderful. But getting back to our topic today, I wanted to ask you, what is gratitude for you? What does it mean?
Well, gratitude is just one of the most foundational pillars of a joyful life of ease, and I'm a big believer in feeling all of your emotions, because I actually, there's different thinkings on what enlightenment is, but I truly believe enlightenment is the ability to be with all your emotions at once, And I think a huge problem we have in society is that people get stuck in suffering or grief because they're unwilling to dive into it and feel it fully. So I would discourage people from using gratitude to avoid feeling the pain they need to feel in their life. But, once you've dove in and as some experts say, let your emotion have its way with you. Gratitude is like the ladder that pulls you back out, And I really think that can't be understated. When you start to focus on the things you're grateful for, I recently went through a breakup. I'm in my 50s. I kind of at a place in my life where I really stopped worrying or thinking about a relationship. And then all of a sudden, bang, one came and I wasn't expecting it, and fell head over heels in love. And several months later it ended. And it was one of those, wow, why did you send this to me, universe? And, I had to go through the anger and the grief. And then the questions on the heels of that become, wow, how did this serve me? And it really did serve me. It helped me see that I am busting up my own journey with not getting stuck in codependency. And it was exactly what I needed, having a beautiful Spanish speaking lover while I'm trying to set up a community in a Spanish speaking country where my Spanish is only, and there were just so many gifts in it, and, while I'm honoring the journey of needing to move through my own grieving process, I'm also using gratitude in recognizing all those beautiful gifts that come out of this to help climb back up the ladder to knowing that, no, I am okay. And my life is happy. And I do love my life, whether I'm single or in a relationship with someone. And that's really the gift of being alive on this planet at this time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
I'm also a big believer of living your emotions and not trying to fake it. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm really sad right now, but I should be grateful.
Yeah.
We need to go through them, because the thing is that when we live the emotions, the so-called negatives,
Yeah.
um, we get to live when we feel grateful. We feel so much more grateful
Yeah.
if we just suppressed the negative and try to go to the positive somehow.
Well, and here's a paradigm shift for a lot of people, right? Dive into being grateful for your pain and your grief and your suffering. Because when you can feel the lesson in it, I often say discomfort is the doorway to breakthrough. And so when you can dive into your discomfort and really like let yourself feel it fully and feel grateful for the lessons that it's bringing, and feel grateful that that's part of the roller coaster and the beautiful journey, that being perfect in all your imperfection, that is what it is to be a human being on the planet at this time. That's what opens up the door for you being able to step into your own passions and your own dreams, right? And here's a incredible concept around influence. If you're really someone that wants to step into your own leadership and your own ability to create social shift and create change in the world, you have to have the courage to step into your own passion. And until you can feel your emotions fully, including your fear and including where you're blocked and including all that suffering you might have repressed as a child because you were just trying to protect yourself and you loved yourself as a child and you didn't know any better. But until you can learn to step into all that and feel it, and then walk out the other side in gratitude, a more complete and a more whole person, you'll never have the courage to lean into your own passions and your own dreams. So it's interesting because influence has so much more to do with who you're being. And I don't want to say there are strategies and there are tactics and there are techniques, and I teach those too. But all of them are useless and will not really get you any profound result, any miraculous result, until you really get in tune with the emotional side and the inquiry of who are you being in the world and what's stopping you. And gratitude is such an important tool in terms of moving through that journey powerfully and appropriately.
Yeah, exactly. I, recently, I had the CEO of 6 Seconds. I don't know if you know about them. They are
Yeah.
working with emotional intelligence. And he told us a story about how he was on the Today Show, I think. And he said that he usually isn't too nervous when he needs to be on a show or something, but at that moment he felt a bit nervous. And having a habit of being grateful, he managed to shift this into gratitude. And the beauty of this is that an internal shift that he did, instead of focusing on what he made him nervous and the fear and everything, he focused on gratitude, and his message was very different because of that.
Yeah.
And I think this correlates with what you were saying.
Well, it's a great story because it highlights so appropriately how influence and the ability to create shift and change in the world works, right? Because the closer we get to our own dreams, the more our negative self-talk comes up. Because your dreams are freaking huge to you, because they're your dreams. Oh my God, I would love to be able to shift the world and create something. And then your ego starts to get in the way. Your ego is going to be saying, who are you to think you can go on the Today Show? Or who are you to think you're important? Or, I have a dominant inner dialogue. I'm the youngest of 9 kids. I grew up in Northern Canada, very big family. So I have a dominant inner dialogue of I'm too small to play with the big kids. Right now, do you think that gets in the way when I need to do a television interview or walk out on stage in front of 1,000 people, right? But it's really important to recognize that it was a much younger version of you that gave you that negative self-talk. And gratitude is an appropriate tool, because when you can fall in love with that little inner child that created those blocks, when I really look at I'm too small to play with the big kids, that was something 3-year-old me invented one day in a moment of devastation. I can actually remember the moment I created that, actually. And that was to protect me, and it was actually one of the greatest gifts that I ever gave myself, because I made an important conversation to myself at the age of 3. So
Yeah,
go figure that I would become someone who was fascinated by influence and fascinated by helping other people step into their own importance in society. I don't mean importance from an egotistical, you need self-validation standpoint. I mean importance from the standpoint of, if you don't create change, who's going to?
exactly. Yeah.
And that was a gift I gave myself at the age of 3, that I was spurred, so I'm not a international #1 best-selling author. You know, my book has hit #1 in 7 countries now. That didn't happen in spite of I'm too small to play with the big kids. That happened because of it. You know, because
Oh.
at the age of 3, I had myself become fascinated. And so when you can start to fall in love with your inner dialogue and learn that it's just a tool that you gave yourself, then you can start to transform your relationship with it. And I love what Jennifer Huff teaches on this in this regard. She runs the Wide Awakening. She speaks all over the world too, very well known international speaker. And she talks about giving your ego a new job description. You know, where your ego, in an effort to try and protect you, notices things that are incongruent with you living a happy, joyful, peaceful life of ease. And then it tries to add meaning to them, and it creates an inner dialogue to protect you around that meaning, right? And, you know, I can actually remember the moment I created meaning around I'm too small to play with the big kids, you know, because there was a specific day where, you know, we used to spend our summers in a remote backwoods cabin. So my siblings were highly important to me because they were my whole world, you know. And one day we came back, we were just back from the cabin, and we were all standing around the kitchen, and a bunch of my cousins were visiting. So our tiny little 100-year-old house with a tiny little kitchen is just packed full of people. And everyone's buzzing with excitement because my grandmother's taking us all to the movies, which is a big frickin' deal in my family, right? You know, I have a staunchly Catholic mother, at that time seriously concerned with the morals of Hollywood movie makers. But my older brother, Mark, had finally convinced her that Walt Disney's not the worst guy in the world, you know. So we're going to see The Love Bug, right? And 3-year-old me is like shaking with excitement. And I look across the room just in time to hear Mom say, Teresa's too small. She can't go.
Oh.
And 3-year-old me is utterly devastated in that moment. And that's the moment I made up. I'm too small to play with the big kids. But like the rest of humanity, once I created that, I started doing one of two things. I started being desperately afraid that it was true and trying to disprove it, or, you know, desperately trying to, I was either desperately afraid it was true or desperately trying to prove it wasn't true, right? So those two things become the drivers in our lives, right? And that was actually a gift that I gave myself, you know? But when we can change how our ego looks at things and say, okay, your new job is just to notice the incongruities, but your job is no longer to create meaning around them. My heart's job is to lean in the direction that gives me ease, flow, peace, and joy. Then you can take the ego out of the equation, you know. And this, I'm basically quoting Jennifer Huff's teachings here. I love her work. If you haven't read any of her stuff, go
No.
check out The Wide Awakening. And she'd be great to get on your show, by the way. That's me giving influence to Jennifer Huff, in case you didn't notice that. That's,
Yeah.
you know, a fundamental principle of influence, right? But, you know, that becomes a big part of transforming it. When you can start to feel grateful for what your ego does for you. Your ego's, like, a lot of us have come to think of the ego as bad. The ego's not bad. It's there to serve you and protect you. It's just, for a lot of us, got the wrong job description, you know. And when you give the ego the right job description, which is to notice when you're unhappy and notice when things aren't right, but to tell it doesn't need to create a lot of meaning and a lot of negative self-talk and a lot of inner dialogue around that. It's no longer its job. You know, its job is to just help guide you like a signpost in the direction in your life that gives you joy and ease and grace. And often the stepping stone between those two things is gratitude. Isn't that, you know, beautiful and ironic all at the same time?
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. I wanted to ask you, from all the teachings that you know, all of the wisdom, do you have some specific words of wisdom or a specific quote that you like on gratitude?
You know, I'm going to quote myself.
That's great.
You know,
You're big enough.
one of my favorite paradigms I love to teach is give yourself permission to step into your own dreams. Because until you do, you're just dreaming. And when you take action around your own dreams, that's the place you're most authentic. You know, there's a lot of different definitions of authenticity out there, you know, but here's mine. Authenticity is simply your inside voice saying the same thing as your outside voice. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you don't give yourself permission to lean in the direction of what you love and always choose in the direction of what makes your heart sing, then you run the risk of being inauthentic everywhere, you know, because we can all recognize situations when someone's got an inner dialogue saying, you know, oh, I really need this sale, but their outer dialogue is saying, this is a great product, you should buy it. We can recognize inauthentic disconnects in people. They don't feel good to us. And so until you give yourself permission to lean in the direction of where your heart sings and where you have ease and flow, you're inauthentic, you're schmarmy, whether or not you know it and believe it, right? And so gratitude takes you there, you know, because when you can recognize what you're grateful for, when you can recognize what you love in your life, that actually leans you in the direction, not only of your own dreams, but of greater influence and ability to create social shift and leadership in the world.
This is wonderful. This is wonderful. I didn't think you can link the two, and I think it's a beautiful connection that you did.
Oh, thank you.
So you don't just make connections between people. You you make great connections between ideas. This is awesome.
Yeah.
It's part of influence in one way or another, right?
Very much so.
So, do you feel like gratitude has helped you when you were in a low point in your life?
Absolutely. And you know, life is just a series of low points and high points, right? And,
Totally.
you know, I think where we get stuck in suffering is when we don't allow ourselves to feel the highs and the lows. And because when we shut our heart away and don't let us feel the pain, then we also shut our heart away and don't let us climb out of the suffering. You know, I love how Dr. Shonda Perrin, who runs Project Forgive, talks about the distinctions between suffering and grief, right? Grief is an appropriate and natural process we need to go through daily. It might even just be grieving that the traffic didn't flow in the direction you needed, and you need to let yourself feel frustrated or angry for a moment. But gratitude is always the ladder out of those pits. You know, gratitudes are the stepping stone. Gratitude is the stepping stones that get us out of that. And so life is so much juicier and alive when we allow ourselves to feel the highs and the lows and live life fully than when we get stuck in a plain or dead zone where we don't allow ourselves to feel either the lows or the peaks.
I just realized why I appreciate my girlfriend so much. She can totally do exactly this. Like when she's upset, you know she's upset, and she feels that all the way. And when she's happy, she's like jumping around and doing everything. So yeah.
You know, I think it's a trap we often fall into in relationships, right? When our partner's upset, we feel like we need to fix it.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the most loving and the best thing we can do, and I love that there's so many now enlightened men on the planet that are starting to tune into this, especially with women, because, you know, we women love it that you're our protectors, and like, you know, we love the provide, protect role. We just don't want it to become controlling and domineering, and, you know, and when your guy starts trying to fix you, when you're just feeling your negative emotions, it feels like, ooh, go away. I don't want you to fix me right now. Just hold my hand while I am in the pain, you know? And I think it's one of the most courageous things that men all over the planet are starting to tune into and learn is, well, and not just men, women are learning it too with their partners, is how to be with their partner in the pain and in the knowledge that my partner has everything they need to fix this. I don't need to be the one that fixes this. I just need to validate that this is the right path, that the fastest path through the storm is straight through. And if you don't feel the storm and you're not willing to take the storm full on, then you're going to get stuck around the periphery, freezing in the dark, you know? So just, hold my hand through the storm. I love that.
Yeah, I love it. And um, another one of my recent guests told an analogy between, like, if you hold a ball under the water and
Mm-hmm.
you try to keep it there, you can do that for a while, but at one point it pops out because
Yeah.
this is how it works. So it's
Yeah.
better to let things come to the surface and to feel
Yeah.
them and to live them, because
Yeah.
otherwise it takes a lot of effort to keep them down, and
Yeah.
they will come
It's
up
a
sooner or
great
later.
analogy, right? Because the deeper you try and hold the ball, the greater the force it will surface with and fly out, right? And so,
Exactly, yeah.
if you're suppressing your emotions in your personal relationships, in business, in life in general, and you're not allowing yourself to feel your own emotions, then all kinds of passive aggressive inappropriate stuff is going to start coming out in the wrong places, right? So it's really appropriate to go through your frustration, your anger, your grieving processes. And there's a skill to learning how to do it in a way that you don't hurt other people as you're doing it, right? Because I think a lot of us appropriately recognize I need to be careful when I'm angry because I can hurt other people when I'm angry, or careful with my sadness or my grief. That's why our personal partners and our dearest friends become so important to us, because they become the safe spaces where we're allowed to, be imperfect. I like to say perfect in all our imperfections, and let the full gamut of what it means to be human just rip forth, because that's what allows us to rapidly and quickly climb the ladder of gratitude back to joy and ease and flow.
Exactly. And the funny thing from my experience is that when you are in those moments, you feel like everything is not the way it should be, and you feel like it will be like this forever. And after you just when you are just there with the feeling, it goes away in a while, and you think, what was I thinking actually? Because
Yeah.
there's just something that was there at that one point in
Yeah.
time. um Teresa, do you remember when you became aware of gratitude, like not just the word gratitude, but do you have a certain experience that got you to understand gratitude on a deeper level?
Boy, there's been many experiences. I think the biggest and the most profound for me would be probably about 15 years ago now. I went through what I now affectionately call my really bad year. And a lot of people can relate to this, that sometimes we have a period of our life where just everything goes wrong. And I can remember in the first 6 months of that year, my father had passed away, my marriage had ended, my business was in a tailspin, and my health was significantly suffering. I had some major health issues going on. And I remember there was a moment I was sitting in the bathroom of my post-marriage breakup condo that I had bought. And I'm surrounded by tools because I've always been a renovator, and this bathroom was going to be my latest project. And there's just tears streaming down my face because I'm looking at the tools and realizing it's me that needs renovating. It's me.
Wow.
And it was such a beautiful, profound moment in my life, because it was the moment that I decided that I needed to be my next project. And the interesting thing about that was I was looking back over the last, I don't know, 15 years of my life, probably at that time, and I couldn't honestly remember the last time I could truly say I was happy. I had all the outward trappings of success. I had the beautiful house, the nice car, two healthy, happy kids, a great six-figure income. Um, and I couldn't look back on my life and point to a time that I could actually say I felt really joyful and at peace with my life. And at the time, I couldn't see what was wrong. I could just see that that wasn't right, you know? And so I really started to dive in. I started doing every self-help course I could under the sun. I started getting a lot more serious about my yoga and my health. And it was through that journey that I started to realize that I wasn't fully feeling my emotions. And in suppressing the downs, I was avoiding the highs. And I was walking through life like a dead person, like a zombie, only sort of liking everything around me, but not ever really letting myself feel the true, wonderful, miraculous gift that this life is, you know? And in that journey of allowing myself to start to get present and actually grieve and go through, you know, piece by piece, peeling back the onion of who I really was, gratitude became my lifeline through that whole process, you know, because whenever the suffering would get too acute, every day I started a gratitude journal, and every day I would write in the gratitude journal all the things in my life that I was grateful for. And it helped bring the pendulum swing back, you know, and I think a lot of times we try and avoid the pendulum swing of our emotions because it's too scary and we can't control it, or we don't know how to get back out of it. But you need to start with this pendulum swing so that you can master it and really understand that emotion is the driving force of everything in this world. It's the driving force of relationships. It's the driving force of success. It's the driving force of influence. There is no successful person on this planet, whether they be billionaire or spiritual guru, that has not learned to master the emotional journey and become a master of getting really in tune with their own feelings, and how to be with their own feelings, and, you know, feel the pain and feel the suffering, and then walk back out the other side using gratitude as a stepping stone to get back to joy.
Exactly. And I can attest the fact that it's not just for women, this part with the
Oh yeah.
emotions, because usually the general paradigm around emotions is that it's like for women, it's women are more emotional. When you think about emotions, many people think about women, but we as men also need to learn this. It might be a bit different for us, but we still need to do this, and I can attest to this. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's really important because emotions are in fact that the way we experience the world, and the beautiful things that remain after certain experiences or during certain experiences. So
Yeah.
these are really important, and uh, great to have as men as well.
Yeah, I really love watching the gender differences there. And even in some of my dear friends who are in same-sex relationships, watching how, you know, every scenario has its own journey. But I love that there are so many people on this planet now that are stepping into the courageous journey of really learning, you know, how do we step into who we really are on the planet? How do we step into our own dreams? And a big part of that is just learning how to listen to your own emotions and be with them and use them. You know, some of the moments that we most fall in love with people is when people are willing to be powerfully vulnerable with us. And I don't
Totally,
mean
yeah.
vulnerable in a, oh, look after me kind of way, let me become codependent and you can just completely look after me. I mean vulnerable in a powerful way of saying, you know what, I really am hurting and suffering right now, and I need a friend to just vent with, or I need you to just hold me for a minute and let me cry. Or I'm struggling in business and I'm terrified that I don't know how to do this. I need a colleague to bounce this off of and tell me I'm on the right track, or in whatever scenario it's in, whether it's in our personal life or our business life. And it's amazing how rapidly that's evolving the planet, that so many people are courageously stepping into that.
Yeah, totally. And we can struggle so much if we don't do this.
Yeah.
It's I,
It's, you know, one of the reasons I'm creating this community down in Costa Rica is because a lot of people who are courageously stepping into becoming the teachers of this stuff, the teachers of how to transform your lives, it can feel isolating at times, right? Because it is scary. Many of the emerging thought leaders of our time, when you talk to them and you realize they have an inner dialogue going on of, who am I to teach this? Because I'm not perfect,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
And they need the friends around them to say, of course you're not perfect. That's what makes you so able to teach this. because you've been on this journey yourself, and you can speak from personal experience that you don't have to be perfect to be on this journey. You just have to be vulnerable, powerfully vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the only way you can actually empathize with people and feel the compassion, because you know how it is to be in their situation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will be you have to imagine it somehow. But and if you would be perfect, it's like, I wonder how is it for other people that I'm talking to be imperfect.
Yeah.
You can't know this, so yeah.
Sometimes
Um,
all you need to know is that you're not alone,
yeah.
you know.
Exactly. So, Teresa, do you do something consistently that helps you to be grateful?
I do many things consistently. I'm a meditator. I used to meditate for like 20 minutes a day, and now I'm more into doing like powerful 2-minute meditations. I often do walking meditations where I just breathe and really bring myself very present to quieting my thoughts and being in the stillness. Um, I also often do a gratitude journal. I love journaling. I think journaling is one of the best ways that you can just order your thoughts. And even if no one ever reads the journal again, I often throw my journals away afterwards, although I save some of them and reread them. Um, and I also have dear friends that we are each other's safe space, that we can move through emotions with, and remind each other of what we are grateful for in our lives in order to come through the other side of the storm. So all three of those practices are things I routinely do.
That's wonderful. I love the part with meditation while walking, because many people think that they need to stay in one place in order to meditate, and we
Mm,
usually walk around. So
mm,
you can do this while walking, while doing something that you already do. So this, I think, might be very useful for our
yeah.
listeners.
Well, a meditation can be as quick as one deep inhale, like just to let me really quiet my thoughts for this one breath. And let me just ask the universe or the angels or God or whatever your spiritual belief, your higher guidance. Let me just ask, what's next? And sometimes what's next is, you need to go have a drink of water, or you need to go eat lunch because you're not looking after yourself. Sometimes what's next is, that project you've been putting off, that's going to make you $1 billion. You better go do that project. So it's amazing what's there in your inner wisdom when you just give your thoughts the chance to settle. And not that I don't believe that 20-minute and longer meditations are very beneficial, but I think sometimes we often underestimate the benefit of that one deep breath. Let me just really settle myself right now. Maybe I need another one. Let's just really settle and get really present. And in this moment, it's just you and me and what's there, and who do we need to be being in this moment,
Exactly. This helps a lot with gratitude, and
Mm.
um, just doing that, I think, helps
Mm.
a lot. So, Teresa, we are beginning to get to the end of the interview, and I want to ask you if you have some people in your life for which you are grateful and that you would like to mention.
Well, I'm definitely grateful for my two best friends. Dr. Shonda Perrin, who I mentioned earlier, she's one of my best friends in the whole world. She and I talk on the phone almost every day. She's going to be my next door neighbor here in Costa Rica.
Oh,
Um,
so how cool!
and there's something in having a best friend who's a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, that
Oh,
forces you to be a better version of yourself, just by being around her. I'm a better me for having her as a friend. And, my other best friend is Pam Bain, who's the Director of Operations for the Evolutionary Business Council, and is my partner in creating this intentional community down here in Costa Rica. She just makes my life work. I love her so dearly. And she reminds me every day that it's okay to be imperfect and okay to be human. And I love her so much for that, because she helps keep me moving by not getting me stuck in my own self-doubt.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your um, people that you're grateful, the people that you're grateful for. And if you have any thoughts at the end of the interview that you would like to share.
I would just reiterate, give yourself permission to step into your own dreams, because that really is the sweet spot of the planet. A lot of people have like why doesn't somebody just fix this? Or someday when I am enough of this, I will. And notice when you hear phrases like that coming out of your mouth, because, maybe you're the somebody who should fix it. And maybe someday is now. And until you give permission to yourself to succeed sloppily, because, the leaders of the world, it's not spit polished and tidy. I can promise you that Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., what they did was frickin' messy. They made mistakes all over the place, but they also had people flock to them to help them. And they gave themselves permission to be sloppy, and they gave themselves permission to be imperfect. And I don't say that to be disrespectful to two men who are icons in my life. I say that to honor who they really were. They were incredibly courageous men that were willing to move forward in spite of all their flaws and in spite of all their humanity and negative self-talk. If you read the journals of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or the people around him, often talk about he would spend hours praying and meditating just to overcome his own self-doubt to be who he needed to be in the world. So, lean in, give yourself permission to do something that means something to the world, whether it's taking on a situation in your community or your family or in your business. Lean in, because until you step into your own dreams, the world will never shift, and you'll deny yourself the opportunity to leave an amazing legacy to your children and your grandchildren.
This is a wonderful message. Thank you. Thank you so much. Where can our audience find you? Where can we see your work?
I would love it if you read my book. I don't want anyone to be denied access to my book, so we actually give the digital version away for free. If you want the hard copy of the Audible, you have to pay for that. But if you go to massinfluencethebook.com, that's massinfluencethebook.com, we send you to all the links where you can get any of the digital versions for free: iTunes, Kindle, Kobo. And if you're inspired to come visit us in Costa Rica and you want to check out what we're doing down here, you can check out vistamundo.info, vistamundo.info, where we are really creating a landing pad for the enlightened gypsies of the world. And if you want to find out more, just reach out. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about that.
How wonderful. How wonderful. All right. Thank you so much, Teresa, for being here with us and for sharing your message. It was really inspiring, and I hope you felt good as well.
Thank you. It was just a joy to be here with you. Thanks so much, Georgian.
Thank you.